It was just past 12:30 a.m. in downtown Las Vegas, the kind of night when the Strip buzzes with bad decisions and broken promises. The storm came out of nowhere, soaking tourists in designer heels and blackjack winners who forgot their luck ends at the curb. Under the flicker of a dying neon win big sign, a man in a charcoal gray suit stumbled out of the VIP entrance of the Marquis Royale, the kind of casino where drinks are served in crystal and secrets are bought with cash. He took 3 steps, swayed, then vomited into the gutter. Nobody flinched. Nobody cared. Until he collapsed, face first, onto the wet pavement, his Rolex catching a glint of casino light before sinking into a puddle. 2 men leaning by a newspaper vending machine straightened up, eyes locked on the fallen man. One cracked his knuckles. The other adjusted his hoodie. They crossed the street. 30 feet away, inside a dented white Ford Econoline van, Brianna Carter saw the whole thing. 34, ex-trauma nurse, now homeless, she had parked behind the casino loading dock, trying to catch a few hours of sleep before her shift volunteering at the free clinic. But sleep doesn't come easy when you've learned to listen for danger. She was out of the van before her brain caught up with her feet. "Hey, back off!" she shouted, her voice slicing the night air. The 2 men froze. One smirked, then took a step forward. That was his mistake. Brianna darted through the rain, dropped to her knees beside the man, and checked his pulse. Faint but there. His wallet had fallen open. Elijah Brooks. The Elijah Brooks. Hotel tycoon. Billionaire. Vulnerable. She snatched her phone and dialed 911, positioning herself between him and the strangers. They took the hint and backed off, disappearing into the dark. When EMTs arrived 8 minutes later, soaked and blinking, Elijah mumbled just 4 words before they lifted him away. You saved me." Sometimes, one act of courage in the shadows lights up a future no one saw coming. Brianna Carter hadn't always lived out of a van behind a casino. Just a few years ago, she was one of the top trauma nurses at Sunrise Medical Center in Nevada. She was known for her steady hands, her cool head during chaos, and her ability to talk a gunshot victim through the pain while stitching them up with precision. She didn't just do her job, she lived it. But everything changed the night a 10-year-old boy came into the ER with internal bleeding. A senior surgeon brushed it off as dehydration. Brianna knew better. She pleaded for a second opinion. She pushed back. But protocol gave the final say to the doctor in charge. The boy died that night. And when she filed a formal complaint, thinking she was doing the right thing, the system turned on her. They called it departmental restructuring, but the message was clear. Whistleblowers aren't welcome. She was let go. No glowing recommendations. No severance. Just a hollow thank you and a folder of HR jargon. Lawsuits were pointless. Lawyers wanted upfront fees she couldn't afford. And while she fought to clear her name, life kept happening. Her younger brother, Jason, had cerebral palsy. He needed medication, therapy, care. Brianna had always supported him, ever since their mom passed. But with no steady job and rent overdue, she had to make choices most people only fear in nightmares. First, she sold her furniture. Then her apartment. Then her car. Eventually, all she had left was an old white Econoline van, and her skill as a nurse. Even in the darkest times, she kept showing up at the free clinic downtown. Twice a week, no pay. She gave flu shots, cleaned wounds, counseled patients, sometimes just sat with veterans who needed to be seen. Not just medically, humanly. She never stopped being a nurse. She just lost the scrubs. And when she saw Elijah Brooks collapse in the rain, she didn't hesitate. Not because he was famous. Not because he was rich. She didn't even know who he was. She acted because that's who she is. Someone who moves when others freeze. Because when you're a nurse, really a nurse, you don't just heal bodies. You protect people. Even when no one's watching. A week after that rainy night, the streets of Las Vegas returned to their usual rhythm. Flashing lights, clinking slots, and the hum of people chasing something, anything, to make them feel alive. But for Brianna Carter, nothing had returned to normal. That night lingered in her bones like the chill of a storm that hadn't quite passed. She hadn't talked about it with anyone. Not even at the free clinic, where she continued her volunteer shifts like nothing had changed. She'd seen worse. She'd done more. Saving a man on the street was just another Tuesday, right? But as she was organizing donated supplies in the back room, trying to sort gauze rolls from expired aspirin, the receptionist peeked her head in. "Brianna," she said, a little unsure. "There's a guy out front asking for you. Says his name is Elijah." Brianna froze. "Elijah?" She wiped her hands on a paper towel, brushed off her jeans, and walked to the front, half expecting it to be a mistake or some random guy with the same name. But it wasn't. There he was. The man she pulled off the sidewalk. No longer a soaked mess in a designer suit, but crisp, collected, and completely in control. Tailored navy slacks. Shirt open at the collar. Hair slicked back just enough. The kind of guy who looks like he belongs on a magazine cover or a Wall Street boardroom, not in the middle of a health clinic. He smiled when he saw her. "Miss Carter," he said with that same smooth voice. "I was hoping we could talk." She was silent for a beat, arms crossed. "How did you find me?" He shrugged. "I asked around." They sat at a diner 2 blocks away, a place where the 4 mica tables were chipped, and the waitress knew everyone's name and heartbreak. Elijah ordered black coffee. Brianna asked for water and a side of clarity. "I wanted to thank you," he began. "Not just for helping me. For not walking away. For treating me like a person when I was too far gone to stand." She looked him dead in the eye. "You looked like someone who needed help. End of story." He leaned in. "Most people would have helped themselves to my wallet." She didn't flinch. "I'm not most people." "No," he said, sitting back. "You're not." Then he dropped the bomb. "I own the Marquis Royale. The casino where that all happened. That's my place." She blinked. "So what? You're here to offer me free room service for life?" He laughed. Genuinely. "No. I'm here to offer you something else. A job. Or maybe something better." Her brows narrowed. "Why?" "Because I believe in putting the right people in the right places. And I think you're one of those people." Brianna looked at him like he'd just handed her a lottery ticket soaked in gasoline. "I'm not a charity case." "It's not charity," he replied. "It's recognition." He handed her a sleek black card. No logo. Just his name. His number. A promise of something unclear, but real. "You don't have to decide now," he said, standing. "But don't close a door that might have been opened for a reason." And then, like he'd never been there, he left, leaving behind nothing but questions, and the faint scent of cedarwood cologne. Brianna didn't call him for 3 days. She kept the black card tucked inside the worn pocket of her denim jacket, the same jacket she'd had since nursing school, like it might vanish if she stared at it too long. She didn't want to admit she was curious. She told herself it was nothing. A rich man's guilt trip. A moment of adrenaline and sentimentality. People like Elijah Brooks didn't just hand out opportunities to strangers who lived in vans. But on the 4th day, after a long shift at the clinic and an even longer night listening to rain pound the metal roof of her van, she picked up her phone and called. He answered on the 2nd ring. "I thought you'd lost the card," he said, voice calm, almost amused. "I thought about it," she replied. "You said this wasn't charity. Prove it." 20 minutes later, she was standing in the lobby of a hotel that looked like it hadn't seen a renovation since the late 90s. The Desert Star Inn. Faded signage. Peeling paint. A front desk that reeked of lemon cleaner and desperation. A bellhop with sneakers instead of dress shoes. Elijah met her near the fountain that didn't work. "This is one of my properties," he explained, leading her through the worn lobby. "One I haven't been able to turn around. Every time I try, something goes wrong. Bad management, worse vendors, and a revolving door of staff who don't care." Brianna looked around. "Why are you showing me this?" He stopped in the middle of the hallway and looked her dead in the eye. "Because I want you to run it." She laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You want me, a homeless ex-nurse, to manage a hotel on the Strip?" "Not manage. Co-own." That shut her up. He continued. "You'd have full operational control. I'd provide capital support for the first year. Legal paperwork's clean. I'll walk away from it. But I want to see what happens when someone who actually gives a damn takes over." Brianna folded her arms. "This sounds insane. And way too convenient." He pulled out a tablet and tapped to a security feed. Footage from that night. Two men approaching his collapsed body. Her running toward him, lifting him off the ground. "That night wasn't random," he said. "You didn't just save me. You reminded me that people like you exist. That maybe the city doesn't need more hotels. It needs better ones." She stared at the screen, then at him. "I'll think about it." "Good," he said, offering a faint smile. "But don't take too long. This place doesn't have much time left." Brianna didn't sleep much that night. She sat in the driver's seat of her van, parked near a cracked curb 3 blocks from the Desert Star Inn. The same hotel Elijah Brooks had walked her through the day before. The same hotel he offered to make hers. Not just to run, but to own. A piece of Las Vegas, with her name on the deed. She'd read the paperwork 3 times since. Legal language wasn't her specialty, but everything seemed clean. No hidden clauses. No tricks. Just a handover of 49% ownership and full control of operations. Elijah would provide funding for 1 year. After that, she'd sink or swim. She stared at her reflection in the windshield, lit dimly by the buzzing streetlight overhead. A nurse, sleeping in a van. About to become a hotel owner. It didn't make sense. And yet, somehow, it did. By morning, her decision was made. She showered at the rec center on Fremont, changed into clean jeans and her best sneakers, still scuffed, but solid, and walked to the Desert Star. Elijah was waiting in the lobby, sipping black coffee from a paper cup. He looked up the moment she stepped in. "I'm in," Brianna said. He smiled, didn't gloat, just nodded once, like he already knew. "No second thoughts?" "Second thoughts are for people who have time to waste. I don't." Instead of a handshake, he handed her a room key. "Room 308. It's yours." She took it. The Desert Star Inn looked even rougher in daylight. Cracked tiles at the entryway. Rust stains around the base of the fountain. A front desk bell that didn't work. And a smell, old smoke and stale coffee, that clung to the curtains and refused to leave. The staff didn't roll out any welcome mats. The receptionist barely looked up. The maintenance guy scowled when she passed. And the manager, Carl, met her with a smirk and a handshake that felt more like a dare. "So you're the one he brought in," Carl said. "Let's see how long you last." She didn't flinch. She just said, "We'll see," and moved on. That night, she moved into room 308. No more van. No more sleeping curled around her duffel bag. The mattress dipped in the middle, and the bathroom sink dripped every 10 seconds. But it was a roof. A beginning. She stood by the window for a while, looking down at the flickering sign out front. Desert Star, it read, only the S was burned out. Desert Tar. Brianna laughed under her breath. Fitting. Then she closed the curtains, sat on the edge of the bed, and whispered to herself, "Let's clean this place up." And with that, day 1 began. Brianna had been in charge for less than a week when she realized something was very, very wrong. It started with a missing shipment. On her 3rd day, she asked the front desk to order more towels. They were down to 2 clean sets for an entire floor. The head of housekeeping, a woman named Carla who'd worked there for years, raised an eyebrow. "We had a bulk order come in just last week," she said. $6,000 worth. Brianna blinked. "Then where are they?" That question led her into the stockroom, and into the first clue. It was nearly empty. A few ratty hand towels, some cracked soap dispensers, and a stack of stained pillowcases. No sign of a $6,000 delivery. She asked for the invoice. Carla printed it off. Vendor. Westline Linen Supply. The receipt looked legit. Branded. Dated. Signed. But when Brianna called the number on the invoice, she got a generic voicemail. No business name. No website. No return call. A day later, she started digging. Late at night, she set up shop in the manager's office. Her office now, flipping through folders that hadn't been touched in months. She found vendor contracts, maintenance logs, payment authorizations. A pattern began to emerge. Same vendors. Same invoice structure. Amounts always hovering just under $5,000. Small enough to avoid internal audits. And 3 names came up over and over again. Westline Linen. Granite Building Services. Briarstone Hospitality. All of them billed thousands monthly. All of them impossible to verify. And then there was a fourth name. A personal signature on nearly every contract. Lawrence Knox. Brianna didn't recognize it at first. But a quick search on her laptop turned up an old article from 2018. Local developer expands holdings on Vegas Strip. Photo included. A man in a pinstripe suit with a smile like a wolf. She printed out the image and pinned it to a corkboard she dragged into the office from a back closet. Then she started stringing receipts around it with red thread. Not because she was trying to be dramatic, because the picture was too messy to keep in her head. Every invoice, every payment, every signature. They all connected. Carl, the former general manager, had signed off on every deal. When she asked him casually about the linen order, he shrugged. Sometimes things get rerouted. Vendors mess up. It happens. But she could see it in his eyes. He knew she was getting close. By the end of that first week, Brianna had uncovered more than $200,000 in unaccounted vendor payments over the last year alone. Ghost companies. Shell accounts. No deliveries. No services. Just siphoned money. She sat in the dark of the office one night, papers spread across the desk like a crime scene, her breath catching in her throat. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was fraud. Intentional. Systematic. She looked down at a sticky note where she had scribbled one question. Who else knows? Then, beneath it, she wrote, who else is still getting paid? It came on a Monday. The kind of morning that started with burnt coffee and a backed-up toilet in room 112. Brianna was elbow-deep in a maintenance checklist when she noticed a small, unmarked envelope slid under the door of her office. No name. No return address. Just plain white paper, folded once, with a single sentence typed in bold, black font. Stay out of the books. That was it. No signature. No demand. Just a warning. Her heart didn't race. Not right away. It settled low and heavy in her gut. She sat back in her chair, fingers tightening around the paper. She'd known it was coming. Maybe not this soon, but eventually. You don't dig into $200,000 worth of fake invoices without stirring up some dirt. Still, the directness of it chilled her. Someone knew she was looking. Someone had been watching. She locked the office door and paced. Could it be Carl? One of the night staff? A vendor? Or maybe someone bigger, someone tied to that name that kept popping up. Lawrence Knox. She picked up her phone and, against her better judgment, called Elijah. He answered on the first ring. Everything okay? He asked immediately, his voice sharper than usual. I got a note, she said. No threats. Just a message. He paused. What did it say? Stay out of the books. That's all. Another pause. Then, I was afraid of this. She pressed the phone tighter. You knew something was off, didn't you? I suspected, Elijah admitted. But when I found out Carl had been bleeding the place dry, I thought firing him was enough. I didn't realize how deep it went, or who else might be involved. You said this hotel needed someone who gave a damn, Brianna said, her voice low. Well, I give a damn. But I'm not getting bullied out of this. I can call in security. No, she cut in. This is my fight. I'm not hiding. I'm not backing down. He was quiet for a moment, then said, Then be careful, Brianna. These aren't amateurs. They've been doing this a long time. She hung up and sat still for a long time. Then she pulled out a yellow notepad and wrote in big, block letters. If they're scared enough to threaten me, I must be getting close. She pinned the note to the wall beside the corkboard, and went right back to digging. The first attack was subtle. On Tuesday morning, the elevator stopped working. Not unusual for an old building like the Desert Star, except this time, the problem wasn't electrical. Someone had clipped the wires. Not frayed. Not worn. Cut. Brianna found the evidence herself when she climbed the narrow maintenance shaft with a flashlight and more adrenaline than common sense. She wasn't a technician, but she'd seen enough during her ER days to know when something was deliberate. She reported it to the police. They shrugged. Could have been corrosion, the officer said, not even writing it down. Get your maintenance guy to look at it. But the maintenance guy, Rick, hadn't shown up in 2 days. And his locker? Empty. The second hit came that Thursday. A health inspector arrived unannounced, clipboard in hand, eyes already squinting like he was looking for trouble before he stepped through the front door. He cited them for 3 violations: improper food storage in the kitchen fridge, which Brianna had personally cleaned 2 nights earlier, expired fire extinguisher tags, all replaced last month, and a minor ceiling leak in room 409 that hadn't even spread past the paint. The fines totaled over $2,000. When she challenged him, he just smiled and said, "You can file a complaint. Take 6 to 8 weeks to process. In the meantime, you're still on record." She watched his car pull away, a black sedan with no official tags. Her gut clenched. That night, she returned to her office and found the place trashed. Not ransacked. Just violated. Her files scattered across the floor. One drawer pulled clean off the rail. The corkboard still hanging, but her sticky notes, the ones with names, numbers, connections, gone. Only one thing was left behind. Her notepad, flipped open to a blank page. Someone had drawn a smiley face. No signature. No message. Just a smile that didn't feel like one. She stood there in the silence, chest tight, air heavy. Then she grabbed a broom and started cleaning up. By the end of the week, Brianna could feel the pressure closing in. Employees started whispering when she walked by. A few quit without notice. One housekeeper slipped a note into her locker. "You're brave, but you should be careful. People don't play fair around here." Even Carla, the longtime front desk clerk, had grown quiet, nervous. But Brianna didn't stop. She documented everything. Took photos. Backed up files to a USB she wore on a lanyard under her hoodie. Started keeping a paper trail of every phone call, every missing item, every irregularity. She knew what was happening. Pressure, intimidation, fear tactics. The same playbook used on whistleblowers, truth-tellers, and people who asked too many questions. And it meant one thing. She was getting close to something that mattered. Late one night, she stood outside the hotel, looking up at the flickering sign. Half the lights were still burned out. The T in star blinked like a warning. But Brianna didn't see failure. She saw a building worth saving, even if someone else wanted it buried. Not everyone walked away. Even as the pressure mounted and the sabotage escalated, a few people stayed. A few even stepped closer. The first was Anna. She'd been working housekeeping at the Desert Star for nearly 8 years. Mid-40s, no nonsense, mother of 3, with hands that moved faster than most people's thoughts. Brianna caught her one evening repairing a broken vacuum with duct tape and a butter knife. "You always this creative?" Brianna asked. Anna didn't look up. "This place doesn't give us tools, so we make do." Brianna nodded. "How long have you known things were off?" Anna tightened the tape with a grunt. "Since Carl stopped writing checks and started handing out cash under the table. Since vendors came and left without ever unloading anything." She stood, wiped her hands on her apron, and looked Brianna in the eye. "You're the first one who's ever asked." That night, Anna stayed late and helped Brianna reassemble the office. No words. Just quiet solidarity. Next came Victor. He ran the hotel bar, or what passed for one, a dusty counter with mismatched stools and liquor bottles that looked like they belonged in a garage sale. Victor was ex-military in his early 50s, with a deep voice and a deeper sense of when to keep his mouth shut. "You served?" Brianna asked during a slow shift. 20 years. Army. Logistics and supply. "You believe what's happening here is intentional?" Victor poured 2 fingers of soda water and slid it toward her. "This building has more ghosts than guests. But you're the first thing in a long time that feels real." He didn't say more. He didn't have to. Finally, there was Noah, a young security guard with a buzz cut, a nervous smile, and a notebook full of observations. One night, he knocked on Brianna's door holding a folder. "I started keeping track," he said. "License plates, deliveries, who comes in after hours. I didn't know what to do with it. But maybe now's the time." Brianna took the folder and opened it. Dates. Times. Patterns. Proof. She looked at Noah, who shifted under her gaze. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I know," he replied. "But if you're standing up, maybe it's time the rest of us did too." And just like that, she wasn't alone anymore. It wasn't a team yet, but it was a start. Brianna knew she couldn't fight this battle in the dark forever. She had the evidence. She had names, documents, vendor lists that didn't match any legitimate registry. She had eyewitnesses, missing invoices, and a folder of notes from Noah that read like a slow-burning heist novel. But she also knew how these stories went when no one else was watching. They got buried. People got scared. The system turned a blind eye and kept moving. So she made a call. Her first instinct was to go to the police. But the elevator incident, the fake health violations, and the silence from local departments told her enough. Someone had friends in low places. So instead, she called Dana Reed. Dana was an investigative reporter for the Las Vegas Sentinel, known for exposing corrupt property deals, backroom lobbying, and one particularly viral piece that led to a city councilman stepping down midterm. Brianna had followed her work for years. The kind of journalist who still carried a notepad, still asked hard questions, still listened. They met in the corner booth of a rundown diner just off Tropicana. Brianna brought copies of everything: flash drive, hard prints, even a few old ledgers Carl had forgotten to shred. Dana didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. She just read, scanned, highlighted. Finally, she looked up. "You know what this is, right?" she said. "I do. This isn't just a bad hotel with shady books. This is organized fraud. Possibly connected to money laundering. Maybe more." "I figured," Brianna said quietly. "That's why I need help." Dana leaned in. "If I run this, it's going to rattle cages. You ready for that? I've had people threaten me, try to scare me out. I'm not backing down." Dana nodded. "Then let's blow it wide open." 1 week later, the story dropped. Front page. Bold headline. Vegas nurse uncovers $1 million fraud hidden in plain sight. Dana didn't hold back. She named companies, outlined the network, traced every signature to Lawrence Knox and his shell corporations. She even included a photo of Brianna standing in front of the Desert Star sign, the S still flickering. The article exploded. Local news picked it up. Online blogs ran with it. Former guests came forward. Old employees started emailing Dana with more tips, more names. And suddenly, Brianna wasn't the only one shining a light on the shadows. She was a headline, and the city was watching. He arrived on a Friday afternoon. No warning, no phone call. Just the soft chime of the front door as it opened and the slow, deliberate sound of polished shoes on tile. Brianna didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Lawrence Knox. She'd seen his name on forged contracts, fake company filings, and suspicious payment logs. She'd traced his reach through LLCs registered in Delaware, vendors with no physical addresses, and wire transfers that seemed to vanish into the ether. And now, the man himself stood in the lobby of the hotel he once treated like a personal ATM. He walked with the smooth confidence of a man who'd never heard no in a voice that mattered. Crisp charcoal suit, gold cufflinks, and an arrogance that hung off him like aftershave. Brianna was behind the front desk, sorting receipts. She didn't stop. "Can I help you?" she said without looking up. "I doubt it," he replied, voice silk and ice. "But I thought I'd give you the courtesy of a face-to-face before the collapse." She looked at him now, met his eyes, didn't blink. "You must be Knox. And you must be the woman who thinks she's a hero." She stepped out from behind the desk. "No, I'm the woman who caught you with your hand in the drawer." He smiled thinly. "You've made quite the mess. The press. The drama. Very theatrical." "It's called exposure," she replied. "It happens when the truth finally gets air." He took a step closer. "You don't understand how Vegas works. This city doesn't run on honesty, sweetheart. It runs on silence, leverage, and making the right people look the other way. I don't play by your rules." He nodded slowly. "That's clear. But let me offer you a way out. Quietly resign. Walk away. No one bothers you. No one touches your precious hotel. Not for sale," she said flatly. "And I'm not walking away." "You should," he said, tone tightening. You're not safe here. People like you don't win in places like this. Brianna reached into her pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. She handed it to him. He raised an eyebrow. What's this? A duplicate, she said. Everything I found. Every document. Every signature with your name on it. He weighed it in his hand. You just hand this over? It's not the only copy, she replied. But I figured you should see what the inside of a jail cell's going to be based on. Knox's jaw clenched. His smile cracked. You don't know who I am. I know exactly who you are. The real question is, do you? The room was quiet, tense. Then, with one last sneer, he dropped the flash drive on the counter and turned to leave. This isn't over, he said without looking back. Brianna watched him go, heart pounding but hands steady. Victor stepped out from the hallway. You okay? She nodded. I think I just declared war. Victor smirked. About time someone did. It happened on a Tuesday morning. No sirens. No warning. Just two unmarked SUVs pulling up to the curb in front of the Desert Star in around 7:45 a.m. Brianna was in the office, finishing payroll reviews, when Noah's voice came through the walkie. Brianna, you're gonna want to see this. She stepped out to the front desk and saw them. 4 agents in suits, badges visible, calm but unmistakably serious. One of them approached her directly, a tall woman with cropped hair and a no-nonsense presence. Miss Carter? The agent asked. That's me. Special Agent Rachel Owens, FBI Organized Crime Division. We've reviewed the materials provided by you and your journalist contact. We'd like to take a look inside. Brianna nodded, heart pounding. Of course. Whatever you need. They didn't need much. 2 agents disappeared into the back office. The others requested access to vendor files, financial records, and the storage room that Carl once kept locked at all times. 30 minutes later, they had what they needed. By noon, the local news had caught wind. A black sedan pulled into the back alley. Carl stepped out, in a wrinkled dress shirt, looking like someone who still believed none of this could possibly touch him. That illusion vanished the moment 2 federal agents approached and cuffed him without a word. Carl didn't even resist. He just muttered, "You've got to be kidding me," as they guided him into the SUV. But it wasn't just Carl. 2 more arrests were made that afternoon. An accountant tied to the ghost vendors and a logistics contractor whose company existed only on paper. By 4 p.m., the 4th and final arrest was made. Lawrence Knox. News cameras were waiting outside his downtown office building when he was escorted into the back of a federal vehicle. No comments. No smirks this time. Just a man whose empire had finally cracked wide open. That evening, Elijah Brooks held a press conference in front of the Marquis Royale. Clean suit. Steady voice. I want to commend Miss Brianna Carter, he said, for showing this city what integrity looks like. Sometimes the right person isn't the one with the resume or the pedigree, but the one who refuses to look away. The Desert Star lobby was quiet as the broadcast aired on TV. Carla wiped her eyes. Victor raised a glass. Noah whispered, "Damn right." Brianna stood in the back, arms crossed, trying to process it all. It wasn't over. There would be hearings, lawyers, more press. But for the first time since she stepped into this mess, she wasn't chasing justice anymore. Justice had caught up. The name came down on a bright Wednesday morning. A crew of local contractors stood outside the Desert Star Inn, ladders propped, tools in hand. Brianna stood on the sidewalk with a coffee in one hand and the original blueprint of the building in the other. The old rusted sign that once blinked Desert Tar was finally being replaced. The new one gleamed under the Nevada sun. The Carter House. No glitz. No neon. Just brushed metal, clean lines, and one small lantern icon to the right. A symbol of light, of guidance, of staying open even when things get dark. Inside, the changes were even more dramatic. The once drab lobby now featured warm lighting, new tile, and artwork from local high school students. Carla, now front desk supervisor, insisted on adding a vintage jukebox near the coffee corner. Victor got a proper bar, modest, polished, and fully stocked with legitimate inventory. Anna oversaw room renovations one by one, starting with the worst offenders. New linens, clean mattresses, actual functioning air units. No more mold. No more flickering hall lights. No more mystery stains. Staff meetings became weekly, collaborative, and mandatory, but never stiff. Brianna made sure of that. She led them like she used to lead trauma teams. Focused, fast, and always with purpose. Even the community noticed. Locals began showing up, not just to book rooms, but to see the change for themselves. Former employees who'd once fled returned asking if there were jobs. Families from nearby neighborhoods came by for Sunday breakfasts in the newly remodeled cafe, which Victor affectionately renamed the Shift Change. What had once been a forgotten building on the edge of Vegas was now a heartbeat. Quiet, steady, but undeniable. One afternoon, a guest left a note at the front desk. It read, "This is the first hotel I've stayed in where I felt safe enough to sleep without the TV on. Thank you." Brianna taped it to the wall behind the desk. It stayed there longer than any certificate or award ever could. Because this wasn't just about fresh paint or new sheets. This was about dignity. About building something that felt like home, even to people who hadn't had one in a long time. The Carter House didn't sparkle like the casinos down the strip, but it shined in its own way. And that was enough. Brianna never wanted to be famous. She didn't build the Carter House to make headlines or win awards. She did it because someone had to. Because too many people had been ignored, stepped over, or told they didn't matter. She'd been one of them. And now, she was building something for all of them. Within 3 months of the hotel's reopening, she established the Carter Wellness Fund, a small but growing nonprofit that provided health screenings, mental health support, and prescription vouchers to homeless veterans and low-income families in the Vegas metro area. Every guest who stayed at the hotel saw a discreet line on their receipt, $1 donated to local care. And most didn't question it. Some even gave more. She also started mentoring. Not through lectures or seminars, but through quiet moments, sitting with young women in transition housing, helping them navigate job interviews, rewrite resumes, or just listen. You don't have to have it all figured out, she'd tell them. You just have to show up for the next step. Every second Saturday, the Carter House opened its doors for community night. Live music, open mic, free food. No reservations. No dress code. Just people. Talking. Laughing. Remembering what it felt like to be seen. Despite everything she'd built, Brianna still drove her old van. It sat in the staff parking lot, dented and sun-faded. She kept it as a reminder, not of struggle, but of the place she started. Sometimes, she'd sit inside after a long day, sip a cup of gas station coffee, and let herself remember the quiet courage it took to keep going. Because legacies aren't born from comfort. They're forged in discomfort, in risk, in the choice to care when caring feels dangerous. And the Carter House? It wasn't just a hotel anymore. It was a promise kept. Years from now, people may forget the headlines. They might not remember the exact date Lawrence Knox was indicted, or the total amount of money siphoned through fake vendors. They might not even remember the name of the hotel before it became the Carter House. But they'll remember her. Not because Brianna Carter was extraordinary by design, but because she chose to act when others didn't. Because she stepped in, spoke up, and stood firm, even when it would have been easier, safer, smarter to walk away. And in that choice, there's a lesson. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need millions in the bank to make change. You don't need the perfect timing, the perfect plan, or the perfect past. You just need to care when no one else does. It's easy to think that courage belongs to the bold, to the loud, to the already powerful. But sometimes, real strength is quiet. It shows up in scrubs, in work boots, in hoodies worn thin from too many nights sleeping in vans. It shows up not with a spotlight, but with a flashlight, held steady in dark places others have long abandoned. The truth is, anyone can be the turning point. The security guard who takes notes instead of looking away. The housekeeper who tells the truth when no one else will. The former nurse who refuses to stop being one, even when the world tries to strip her of everything. Brianna never wanted to be the story, but she became one anyway. And in doing so, she reminded all of us that legacies aren't built in boardrooms. They're built one choice at a time. One voice. One stand. One light in the dark.